Your neighbor bakes cookies and waves hello every morning, and his shop smells like fresh bread, and children love him and parents trust him completely. But every night after closing his bakery, he becomes someone else, someone terrifying, someone who hunts people like wild animals in the frozen wilderness. And this is not a movie, and this is not fiction, because this happened in a quiet neighborhood just like yours, where two ordinary men lived double lives so twisted that even experienced detectives had nightmares after learning the truth. And one collected nearly 1,000 photographs that police still cannot explain, while the other turned the vast Alaska wilderness into his personal hunting ground. And they fooled everyone for decades because they seemed so normal, so helpful, so trustworthy. But behind their friendly smiles lived monsters that would shock the world. And today, you will discover why the most dangerous people are often the ones you would never suspect. The story begins in a small bakery in Anchorage, Alaska. The smell of fresh bread filled the air every morning. Children pressed their faces against the window, watching the baker work. Their parents smiled and waved at the quiet man behind the counter. He seemed shy but kind, always ready with free cookies for the kids, always willing to help with community events. Regular customers knew his daily routine perfectly. He opened at 6 every morning, wearing the same flour-covered apron. He hummed quietly while kneading dough. His wife sometimes helped during busy hours, and their children played in the back room after school. The family seemed picture-perfect to everyone who met them. Local newspapers featured his bakery in community spotlights. Church groups ordered dozens of his pastries for events. School teachers brought their classes for field trips to watch him work. He donated leftover bread to homeless shelters every week. His reputation in the neighborhood was spotless. But after closing time, when the last customer left and the lights went dark, something changed in him. Something that had been building since childhood was about to explode in the most terrifying way possible. Nobody knew that this same man spent his nights planning something horrible. Nobody could imagine that their trusted neighbor was secretly one of the most dangerous killers in American history. Alaska in the 1970s was a wild place. Oil money brought rapid growth to Anchorage. New people arrived every day looking for work and opportunity. The city transformed from a small frontier town into a bustling metropolis almost overnight. Construction workers, oil rig operators, and fortune seekers flooded in from across America. But growth also brought darkness. Strip clubs opened on every corner. Crime rates soared. Drug dealers set up operations in back alleys. Young women, many far from home and family, found themselves struggling to survive in a harsh new world. Some turned to dangerous work just to pay for food and shelter. The police were overwhelmed. Missing person reports piled up on desks. Many cases went unsolved simply because there were not enough officers to handle them all. Women disappeared regularly, and authorities often assumed they had just moved on to other cities or fallen victim to the rough lifestyle many lived. This chaotic environment created perfect hunting conditions for predators. Among the thousands of new faces in town, one more stranger would never be noticed. One more friendly neighbor would blend in completely. These women became perfect targets for a man who had been waiting his whole life for revenge. His childhood had been filled with pain and humiliation. Born in 1939, he grew up with a face covered in terrible acne scars and a stutter that made speaking difficult. Other children mocked him. Girls ignored him. His father forced him to work long hours in the family bakery instead of playing outside like normal kids. The anger built slowly inside him, but he found one place where he felt powerful: the wilderness. With a hunting rifle in his hands, he was in complete control. Animals could not laugh at him or hurt his feelings. In the forest, he was the master. This gave him a terrible idea. In 1971, he moved to Alaska and opened his bakery. He got married, had children, and seemed to build a normal life. The community respected him. Local newspapers even wrote articles about his excellent hunting and archery skills. But the rage from his childhood had never disappeared. It had just been waiting. Late at night, when the bakery was closed and his family was asleep, he would drive through the dark streets of Anchorage. He studied the patterns of nightlife carefully. He knew which areas had the least police patrol. He understood which women seemed most vulnerable and desperate. His hunting grounds expanded beyond the city center. He explored remote parking lots near cheap motels. He watched bus stations where runaways arrived with nowhere to go. He memorized the schedules of late-night workers walking home alone. The predator spent months observing each potential victim before making his move. He learned their routines, their habits, their weaknesses. This patience made him incredibly dangerous, because by the time he approached them, he already knew exactly how to manipulate them. He looked for women who seemed lost or alone. Women who might not be missed if they disappeared. Women whose disappearances would not trigger major police investigations. His approach was always friendly. Sometimes he offered money. Sometimes he promised a safe ride home. Other times he used force. But he always got them into his car. What happened next separated him from ordinary criminals. He did not just attack and leave. He had something much worse planned. This man owned a small airplane. After assaulting his victims at his house, he would blindfold them and force them into the plane. Then he would fly deep into the Alaskan wilderness, hundreds of miles from any help or hope of rescue. The flight itself was part of his twisted psychological game. He wanted his victims to feel completely helpless and isolated. He would describe the vast emptiness below them as they flew. He told them about the wild animals waiting in the forest. He explained how their screams would never be heard by another human being. His plane was specially modified for his dark purposes. He had removed seats to create more cargo space. He installed extra fuel tanks for longer flights. He kept survival equipment that he would never share with his victims. He had built a remote cabin in the middle of nowhere. No roads led to it. No neighbors could hear screams. The nearest town was over 200 miles away. It was the perfect place for his twisted game. The cabin contained disturbing evidence of his crimes. Clothes from previous victims hung on hooks. Personal belongings were displayed like trophies. Maps marked his favorite hunting spots in the surrounding wilderness. After landing his plane, he explained the rules. His victims could run. He would give them a head start, just like hunters do with animals. Then he would chase them through the forest with his rifle and knife. Some women tried to hide in trees. Others attempted to swim across freezing rivers. A few tried to fight back. But he knew these woods better than anyone. His hunting skills were expert level. None of them ever escaped. To him, this was not murder. This was sport. This was justice for all the years of humiliation and rejection. The vast Alaska wilderness became his private hunting ground, where he could be the predator instead of the victim. The bodies were left for wild animals or buried in unmarked graves. Some were never found at all. Alaska is a perfect place to hide evidence. The wilderness can swallow secrets forever. For 12 long years, women vanished from Anchorage with disturbing regularity. Most were young, struggling with difficult lives, far from families who might search for them. Police assumed they had moved to other cities or fallen victim to the dangerous lifestyle many lived. Nobody suspected the friendly neighborhood baker. His double life seemed perfect. During the day, he smiled at customers and made birthday cakes for their children. At night, he planned his next hunt. He won community awards for his archery skills. He attended school events with his own kids. He was the model citizen that everyone trusted. But every perfect crime eventually has a flaw. June 13th, 1983 started like any other night for the baker. He had found his next victim and brought her to his house. He prepared his plane for another hunting trip into the wilderness. But as he loaded his equipment, something went wrong. The 17-year-old girl broke free from her restraints. While he was distracted with the airplane, she ran. Still handcuffed, barefoot, and terrified, she sprinted through the darkness toward the airport road. At 4 in the morning, a truck driver saw her waving frantically for help. He stopped and found a crying, desperate teenager who told an unbelievable story. She described being kidnapped by a short man with glasses who stuttered when he spoke. His house had a basement with hunting trophies on the walls. He was going to fly her somewhere remote to hunt her like an animal. The truck driver took her straight to the police. Her detailed description led them to check flight records. One name appeared that matched her story perfectly. But when police questioned him, he denied everything. He had an alibi from a friend who claimed they were together during the alleged kidnapping. The police faced a choice: believe a respected businessman and father, or trust the word of a troubled teenager. They chose to believe him. The girl's story should have ended there. The baker should have been free to continue his terrible hobby. But one detective could not shake the feeling that she was telling the truth. This detective began investigating quietly. He discovered something that made his blood run cold. For years, human remains had been found scattered across the Alaskan wilderness. All were women. All matched the description of those disappearing from Anchorage. All showed signs of being hunted and killed like animals. The detective convinced his supervisors to get a search warrant. In late 1983, police thoroughly searched the baker's home. What they found shocked even experienced investigators. Hidden behind a ceiling panel were dozens of pieces of women's jewelry that did not belong to his wife. In the attic, they discovered multiple weapons. But the most chilling evidence was found tucked behind a headboard. An aviation map with 24 X marks scattered across the wilderness. Each X, investigators realized, marked the location of a grave. Faced with overwhelming evidence and the threat of execution, the baker finally confessed. He admitted to killing 17 women over 12 years. He calmly described his system of flying victims into the wilderness and hunting them for sport. He showed no emotion as he explained how he selected women who would not be missed. He never apologized to the families of his victims. He spoke about hunting human beings the same way others might discuss hunting deer. The courtroom was silent as families listened to his confession. He was sentenced to 461 years in prison, plus life without parole. He died behind bars in 2014, taking many secrets to his grave. But this story of hidden evil was just beginning. 3,000 miles away in Los Angeles, another monster was perfecting the art of living an invisible life. This man seemed even more normal than the Alaska baker. He lived on a regular street in south-central LA, where families had known each other for generations. Block parties happened in his front yard. Children played on his porch steps. His house looked exactly like every other house on the street. Small front lawn, chain-link fence, carport with an old car. Nothing stood out as unusual or threatening. Neighbors borrowed tools from him. Mothers asked him to watch their children while they ran errands. The community trusted him completely. During summer barbecues, he grilled hamburgers for everyone. At Christmas, he helped string lights on houses. When elderly neighbors needed help with repairs, he volunteered his time and skills. He worked as a mechanic, fixing cars in his front yard. Neighbors loved his jokes and stories. Parents trusted him around their children. Local kids would gather around to watch him work on engines, fascinated by his mechanical knowledge. His reputation was built over many years of careful relationship building. He attended community meetings. He participated in neighborhood watch programs. He even helped organize fundraising events for local schools and churches. For over 20 years, he was also one of the most prolific serial killers in California history. Born in 1952, this man had seemed like a regular kid. Teachers remembered him as quiet and polite. He was good with his hands and often helped neighbors repair bicycles and electronics. After high school, he joined the army but was discharged after a serious incident in Germany that most people back home never learned about. Returning to Los Angeles, he got a job collecting garbage. He drove through neighborhoods every day, learning the streets and studying the people. Later, he became a mechanic, working from his home and building a reputation as reliable and helpful. He married, had children, and appeared to live a completely ordinary life. But like the Alaska baker, he was hiding something terrible. The first confirmed murder happened in 1985. A 29-year-old woman was found shot 3 times and dumped behind a garbage container. Over the next 3 years, more bodies appeared with frightening frequency. All were African American women. All showed signs of sexual assault. All had been shot in the same execution style. Despite the clear pattern, police did not initially connect these murders. The victims were often struggling with addiction or involved in dangerous lifestyles. Authorities treated their deaths as separate incidents of street violence. The media paid little attention, but in the community, fear began to grow. Women whispered warnings about a man driving a rusty van, offering rides to vulnerable women. Some survivors escaped and told stories of being attacked, but no official warnings were issued. By 1988, the murders seemed to stop. Police investigations went cold. The public moved on to other concerns, but the killer had not stopped. He had simply gotten smarter. This man studied police procedures carefully. He watched the news to see if anyone was connecting his crimes. He changed his methods regularly and cleaned up evidence thoroughly. When things became too dangerous, he would simply wait, sometimes for years. In 2002, another woman was found murdered in the same style. More bodies appeared in 2003, 2005, and 2007. The killer had been active all along, just more carefully hidden. Finally, investigators began using advanced DNA technology to solve cold cases. In 2008, they got a breakthrough. DNA from multiple crime scenes partially matched a man in the state database. This led them to his father. To confirm their suspicions without alerting him, undercover police followed the suspect to a pizza restaurant. After he left, they collected his leftover food and utensils from the trash. The DNA analysis proved their theory correct. On July 7th, 2010, police raided his South LA home. What they discovered was beyond their worst nightmares. In his garage and bedroom were nearly 1,000 photographs and videos. Most showed women in various states of undress. Many appeared unconscious. Some were clearly dead. Dozens of these women were never identified. The horrible truth became clear. The known victims represented only a fraction of his actual crimes. The man was charged with 10 murders, but investigators believe the real number could be 50 or more. During his trial, he showed no emotion as prosecutors described his calculated targeting of society's most vulnerable women. In 2016, he was convicted and sentenced to death.
You shall suffer the death penalty.
He died in prison in 2020, taking his secrets with him. Many questions were never answered about the women in his photographs and the true scope of his crimes. Both men succeeded for decades because they understood a crucial truth. These predators worked hard to appear normal and trustworthy. They studied their communities, learned who would be missed and who would not, and carefully selected victims that society often ignored or forgot. Their success came from patience, planning, and the terrible knowledge that most people judge others by appearances. If you want to learn more about crime awareness and how to identify dangerous behaviors in our communities, please share this story and subscribe to our channel. Everyone deserves to stay informed and safe.